was going to talk about cooperation in Kia and kind of talk about some of our recent research. And then I decided that actually it might be more beneficial, particularly given tomorrow, to kind of give a bit of an overview, a kind of big picture on why we're doing research on Kia and specifically on Kia cognition. So I've retitled my talk, Why Study How Kia Think, and I'm kind of going to take you through 3 key reasons, the middle of which I think in particular may have some value to you in terms of conservation. So generally, our lab at Auckland is focused on the evolution of intelligence. So we're focused on trying to understand how human intelligence evolved and how intelligence evolves in animals. So these are kind of fairly blue sky, kind of theoretical questions. And to do this, we study 3 species. So we study New Caledonian crows and New Caledonia. And we're interested in understanding whether extractive foraging, so getting food from hard-to-reach places, and whether that leads to the evolution of particular types of intelligence, a particular type of smartness. We're interested in social intelligence and being able to understand other individuals and predict their behaviour. And we've just set up a dog lab at Auckland to do this. We're pet owners training their dogs, and we play behavioural games with them. And then we study the Kia, and the Kia fit really nicely into this picture because they are both extractive foragers and highly social. So you've heard from Zamino about the mechanisms, the techniques that they need to get into seeds. Also, they're highly social, there's the play aspect as well. And so the kind of big question for us in terms of theory is whether this combination of selective pressures of being extractive foragers and being highly social has led to a more sophisticated type of intelligence. So in terms of the theory, there's a really good reason to be studying here. This is kind of like the prime reason we started going into this. But then, to really answer these questions, we have to really get at one kind of key thing, and that's being able to really understand how these 3 animal species think. And so this isn't just a question of being anthropomorphic and seeing an animal produce behavior and imagining ourselves producing that behavior as well and assuming that they think just like us. This is about respecting the fact that we have animals with very different evolutionary histories that are going to evolve different ways of thinking. Some of those ways might be quite similar to our own, some of them might not be, and that's kind of an active research question. And the thing that I kind of want to emphasize today is I think that some of this knowledge could have great potential for Kia conservation. So the kind of one key program that we're just setting up is what we term Cognition for Conservation. So this is being led by my colleague Richard Shaw, the University of Victoria in Wellington. And the idea here is to use comparative psychology, use our understanding of animal minds in order to help with conservation. So the kind of big idea here is that one key challenge facing many animal species is reacting adaptively to human and to environmental change. I think a lot of the issues we've been talking about today kind of a result of that. And we can help animals deal with this behavior if we can change their behavior. And the key thing is that behavior is not set in stone. It's not the case that just because an animal is reacting in one way right now to a situation that we can't change that in very interesting ways. But if we're going to be able to do this well, we really have to understand the minds of these animals. And so our aim here is to focus on understanding cognition so we can manipulate biases and attention in innate responses when learning in order to enhance conservation efforts. It's been really great today, listening to all the challenges facing you all, and kind of suddenly sparked a few different ideas in my head. But just as an example, what I prepared you to kind of show you how this would kind of work is death by chocolate. So it's kind of focusing on whether or not we might be able to persuade Kia not to want to eat chocolate. So this sounds like a really, really tricky problem. How can you persuade a Kia not to want to eat something so tasty? But in terms of the theory, there are lots of different points that we can act on in order to try to change the Kia's reaction. So we can look at how they encounter the cue, how they perceive it, how they attend to it. We can see how they identify the cue. We can particularly look at categorizing different objects in the world around them. So are they categorizing things like chocolate in terms of food? Are they categorizing things like other human objects in terms of food? And then obviously, when we have this problematic behavior, there's also lots of different mechanisms that we can look at in terms of experience as well. So pairing up chocolate or chocolate odors with different properties could lead to some changes in behavior. So with a specific example of chocolates, we look at things like whether objects that smell or look like chocolates we can teach kids that these actually taste bad. More generally, we could be looking to see whether we could teach that objects left by humans generally taste bad. And in terms of the kind of like the specifics here, one thing is obviously just looking at Kia smell. This seems fairly straightforward, but then it kind of boils down to kind of more basic questions that I don't think we really have a very good answer to right now. So whether Kia can form higher order categories like objects left by humans or rubbish, how quickly Kia learn different rules, and then particularly how stubborn they are in their rule learning. So when they learn a rule, do they stick to it for a long time, even if they have a few good experiences and a lot of bad ones? So if they've learned that chocolate, for example, tastes bad, or the smell of chocolate leads to a bad reaction, how quickly then do they update that information if they then in the wild come across chocolate and it's positive? And I think these kind of processes might be able to help deal with some of the problems that you've been talking about. It's really interesting hearing about the freeze reaction to stoats and the fact that obviously the Kia are not categorizing stoats in any way as obviously a predator, it's not a prey item. And again, like, is it possible to change how they categorize stoats, on a wide scale in order to kind of change those kind of behaviors? So these are all things I'd love to be discussing with you tomorrow. This is a very complicated diagram. The only reason I bothered to put it up is to say that almost any behavior, there's a number of different cognitive mechanisms that we can focus on to either increase or decrease the how often a behavior is being repeated in the environment. I think there's huge potential here to kind of get more of a dialogue going between conservationists and comparative psychologists to try to see if we can help out with some of these problems. So this is another reason to be focusing on conservation. As I say, the chocolate example is really just an example. I will just emphasize that. At the moment, we're kind of like thinking about key behaviors that we really want to focus on. And also, it's going to take some time to kind of run studies like this. But long term, we think that understanding how animals think offers a really powerful new tool for conservation, particularly when we're talking about large range species, such as the Kia and the cat. Yeah. And then the other reason that I think focusing primarily on animal cognition and biopsychology is that it kind of changes perspectives. And this is something I've seen across my career to date. Early on in my career, I did a lot of work on crows, particularly New Caledonian crows. And generally, birds have had this reputation as being bird-brained. We now know they're brainy birds, but this has been only in the last 10 to 15 years that this type of evidence has come forward to suggest this. And we also know that, crows in particular, in mythology, they kind of have a bad reputation. They're harbingers of doom. They're fairly evil. And when I first went out to New Caledonia, I was talking to lots of farmers and hunters there, and they were kind of proudly telling me how many crows they shot that day because, they'd come in, they'd taken some of their crops, they were letting the position of hunters know in the woods. And as they saw the kind of research effort that we were putting in, and particularly as they started seeing some of the findings that we were having, and particularly I think this kind of like key finding that we had, that as my colleague Nathan Emmer said, crows are feathered apes. They're performing similarly to primates to a lot of tasks that we throw at them. People started really changing their perspectives on the New Caledonian crow. They became incredibly proud of the crow. The crow got put on their stamps. And there was this real change in how people were talking about the crows. And they were no longer, obviously don't get me wrong, there's still some people that are shooting and hunting them and all the rest of it in New Caledonia, but a lot of people did seem to change their behaviors. And I think this is really interesting because there's quite a similar situation going on with the Kia. Not that people are seen generally as a pest species, but I think the first thing that pops into people's minds when they think of the Kia is that they're kind of like they're cheeky and they can be problematic. And it'd be really nice if we could produce that kind of chain of research that myself and other colleagues have done when it comes to corvids, to kind of repeatedly remind the public that it's not just the case that these birds are, they're smart, they're kind of smart, but they are something similar to apes. They're feathered apes out there doing these amazing things. And again, just like with the conservation side, there's not been a huge amount of work we've done. There's been some fantastic stuff recently, but it's still an area where there's so much potential in terms of the science, and it would be so nice to kind of be reminding the New Zealand public from time to time about how amazing these birds are. So that's really my talk. Just wanted to give you a nice overshot of what it is that we're doing with our lab. This kind of theoretical focus, obviously, but then this kind of focus on cognition for conservation. That's something I'd love to hear all your thoughts on tomorrow. And then just generally trying to change people's perspectives. So I think I'm talking about